Omar. It is Sunday, November 12th, 1:09 p.m. and I wanted to make a video about my trade and just talk a little bit about trend lines. So I'm still currently in Mattel. I'm actually up about I think like $12,000 right now, maybe more. And I'll tell you how I got into Mattel. So I wasn't even planning on trading Friday. I was working and I teach, and I was training a group, and my training was over. I got back to my desk, so I said, let me log on, let me see what's good. This was the watch list that I posted on Friday. So I'm just going through my tickers. I'm just going through the tickers, and as I was going through the tickers, I noticed Mattel, which had some good earnings, and it's been on an upward trend. So let me just zoom out here. Over here to the right is a 5-day, 3-minute chart, and you can see it was at 12.93, and over the last 3 days, I mean, it got up after hours to 18.30 because there was some merger talk. I mean, I just got really lucky with the stock in terms of where I'm at right now. It's ridiculous. So this is what happened. So I saw Mattel, and here's the 1-minute chart. Let me use the 3-minute chart just so you can see it a little bit clearer here on the right side. So when I caught Mattel, it was, and it's hard to see on the 1-minute. I'll just show you better on the 3-minute here. So I caught around here. This was like about 12:30 when I logged on, and I saw that the stock had this big candle. This is the 13 EMA, and I noticed these green pops here, right? These pops. But what I noticed was, it wasn't gathering storm. It wasn't bouncing. So that's showing me weakness. And I'll zoom out a little bit. It's hard to tell here, but it had gapped up already from the open. It hit a low of 1362, and it was already up to 1435. So it had been running all day. It hadn't even touched VWAP yet. So that led me to believe that there was going to be a pullback. So with that said, right into this candle right here, I actually took a short. I took 4,000 share position short right in this candle, risking the high. So this is 1431, this is 1436. I was risking this, but I just felt like it was gonna wash because I saw the sideways consolidation, and on the level 2, I was seeing the bids in the ass, a lot of people on the ass, not a lot of buyers. So I just thought it was gonna wash, and you had to be patient. And I was watching it on the one end on the thing. It's just hard to see here, but you just see this consolidation, and I felt like it was gonna wash. And when I saw this, you see, this is when you see weakness. When you see these little pops, and you're not seeing a trend reversal, that's when you know, guys, that there's weakness and there's gonna be a wash. This is where you take short positions in these little pops here. And I was very comfortable, and the stock just washed like I thought it would. And I just had my so with the active trader, I had my my buy stop. Like, I just kept bringing it down as it was washing. And and right into here, when it got to a low of 1418, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I thought maybe it wasn't gonna bounce back, but it did. Now so right into this bounce right in here, I covered my shares, which was great, which was fantastic. So really quickly, I just walked in my desk, and I made several $100s right off the bat. And then let me show you guys something. So when you what I do use a lot of is trend lines. So here you see how I click this trend line, and you see how it's already formatted, and I have it follow a trend. You see how it's going down. Now to set this, all you do is when you create a trend line, you just right click, go to edit properties, and what I do is I turn on the extension left and right on. That way, and then you pick whatever color you want. You have all these different colors, and the style and the width, and then you just click save as default. Once you do that, when you have the left and right extension on, this is sort of how it works. And all you do is basically follow the trend. So when I saw that it broke above here and it started this sideways consolidation, I did both, which I haven't done in a while, which is great. I actually shorted the stock, and then I longed it. So when I covered right into this 1422, I was risking VWAP. I actually went in again another 4,000 shares, and I just basically took this long. Now let me zoom out here. So it's just hard to do with this the way this thing is, but let me put 5-minute chart. Let me see if I can do that. Make it easier. All right. So all you do is, right? Let me clear this out. So all you do is, when I got in, all I basically did was put a trend line. So I just put a trend line, and I just stood in as the stock was right in the trend. So here, let me zoom in. You see how it's right in the trend? And as long as it's right in the trend, you're good. You know, right here it pulled out. Now this is normally where the trend, you know, usually is reversing, but you see how it kind of bounced off the 13 EMA and it didn't get below it. I said, you know what? This stock has good earnings. It's been running all day. I'm gonna hold it, and I never hold stocks. I mean, this is one of the few times I did. Sure, and you know, so I left work. I got home. When I got home, I saw the stock up here at $18. I could not fucking believe it. So the reason why the stock, I didn't think this was gonna happen. I thought maybe Monday, I hold over Monday, and maybe like in pre-market I would sell. You know, maybe it continued to gap up or something like that. The reason why this was just luck. The reason why this happened was because there's talk of a merger between like Hasbro. I think, yeah, Hasbro makes an offer to buy Mattel, and that made the stock rip after hours. So I'm still in the stock. You know, it's up, man. It's up. It's fucking awesome. So, you know, I'm in the stock, and you know, we'll see what happens Monday. You know, hopefully I'll close my position and I'll make a shitload of money. So I got very lucky. But the reason why I stood in the entire time was the trend. The trend line. The trend is your friend. Here, let me give you another example. Let's pull up Roku. Let's pull up Roku. Let me clear this. All right, and what I'm gonna do is, this is the Fibonacci's. These are like some automated Fibonacci a friend of mine sent me. What I'll do, I'm gonna remove it because I just want to show you clearly without any lines. Apply. Okay. All right. So let's say you see a stock, the market opens, and you see a stock running like this. When you see a stock gapping up like this, like straight up like this, all you do is, you know, as soon as you see the trend starting to form, you put your trend line, and you can just stay in as long as the stock rides the trend. You see how it's riding this trend? And what happens is, once it breaks the trend, you get a pullback. You see how so once it broke the trend, you could have took the short. Now, it doesn't seem like much, but if you got in short really quickly here, this opened up at 13.26, it hit a high of 13.30 and hit a low of 32.72. I mean, in this one candle within 1 minute, you could have made some nice bank shorting it. And, you know, you got this gap up, it double topped here, and then it washed, you know. So what you do is, if you see the gap up and you see this starting to trend like multiple consecutive candles, you can put another trend line, you know, here. And once you see that trend, look what happens is it bounces off VWAP, it breaks the trend, and you could take this long. You could do this shit all day and scalp. I do this a lot too when I do a lot of scalps. Now, once you see the stock here, let me zoom out. Once you see the stock is like it's had double topped here and it's starting to kind of consolidate this way, you can put your trend line in because the stock is now going in this trend. So if you notice here, it forms like it's forming a flag. Look what happens here, right? It gaps up, it's kind of pulling down, it finds its support here, and once it breaks the trend, you go long and you take this long. And then as it's going long, each time it gaps up and pulls back, guess what you do? You put a trend line because you see the flag. Once it breaks the flag, you take it long each time. Look, another flag here. And look how it's riding the 13 EMA. And look at this. Once it pulls back on that, so once you see this trend starting and you see it pull to the 13 EMA, you know, you put that little trend line. Once it breaks the trend, you take it up. Look, it did it again up here, another flag. You see? Gaps up, gets away from the 13 EMA, pulls to the 13 EMA and runs again. Right here, it does it again, you know? Each time you have these little trend reversals. Once it breaks the trend, you can take them for little pops, and it doesn't seem like much, but look, from here, this is what the opening was 34.04, all the way up to here. was 35.77. I mean, it doesn't seem like much, but this is real cool. Even 100 shares gets you a couple $100, you know, and you can just play the trend, you know, and you can get in on each one. Or let's say you got in here. I'm gonna clear this. You know, let's say you get in here, right? Because you saw that first flag forming. Let me zoom in a little bit, make it easier for you guys to see. So let's say, right, you see the trend forming. Like, all right, here it is. It's going on this downward trend. So it breaks the trend here, and you get in, right? Once you get in, you can put your trend line, you know, going up this way, and you can just ride it until it breaks the trend. And look, once it breaks the trend, you know, look at that. You could take it short. You cover, and you could take this for short. And look what happens. You see, you got a new trend, right? You see the trend line going down. So all you do is you take that trend line and you just watch it go down, you know. And once it breaks the trend, you really quickly can go long on it, and you can scalp all day. Like me, I'm fortunate. I'm over the PTT rule, so I can trade as much as I want. I have liquidity, so I could do this shit all day and make money and scalp, you know. And you know, I do this every now and then, especially volatile stocks like this. Look, and you could do this all day. Look, let's look at a couple other. Right, look what happened. Look how it continues to. Now me, the way I trade, like normally if I see this and I see without even looking, like without even putting a trend line, like right here I take a short because I see this is high, I see it perked up here and it's not holding, so I know it's weakness and I can take a short. But you know, let's say, you know, you're watching and you see this go down, right? So as soon as you see it go down, you know, you put your trend line here and it breaks the trend, so you take it long, just put another trend line, you know, and you just, hey, as long as it rides a trend, you're in, and boom, once it breaks the trend, you're out. Or you took short. Let's say you missed it and you don't want to chase, so you know, you put a trend line, say, hey, once I see this break this trend, I'm going to take a short, and look at this, boom, you know. And once you're in short, you put that trend line going the opposite direction. Once it breaks the trend, you can go in, and then you put your trend line here, you know. So the trend line, the trend is your friend, and it's a great way for you to stay in a stock, and it gives you some sense of why you should stay in the stock, you know. And you can do this all day, you know. Look at that, you know, and it just kind of rolled down. Now if you're looking at it this way, you know, let's say you take a short, and you know, you can kind of, you know, have it go down this way, or you go short and, you know, you put this little trend line right here, so that you know, you really quickly want to see it go in and out, and you see the pop. You know, you don't want to wait to see if it's going to risk high day. You're like, hey, I'm going to cover some in here once it breaks here, and then maybe I'll hold the rest to see if it's going to get above the high here, or if not, I'll hold to see if it's going to continue to break down, you know. And that's how you play trends, guys. You know, trend lines are fantastic, all right? Trend lines are absolutely fantastic. Now remember, you should always, you know, also have your trends for support and resistance as well, you know. So, you know, if the stock hit a high here, you know, this is the high day at this point, you know, and you know, this becomes the new support level. You know, you definitely should always make sure you acknowledge these levels, because they matter. So it's a little finicky when I use this trend line this way, you know, and that way, you know, all right, this is the high, this is the low, all right, and I got this new trend forming. So, you know, I'm going to ride the trend, you know, and then boom, you take it up, and then, you know, you have something to play off of, you know. So if you see this gap down, you see it hold, and you see a new trend forming, you know, you just ride the trend, you know. And, you know, while you're in it, if you miss and you want to take a crack, if it's away from VWAP, here you see this, you're like, hey, it looks like a flag forming. And once you see it break that, you can take it for a quick ride up, you know. And these are the higher price stocks, and this is what you can do with the higher price stocks. And you can scalp and make good money, like taking 100 shares, because the stocks are so volatile. You get 30, 40, 50, you know, you get points. These things move in points. They're not moving in, you know, 10 cents, 20 cent increments. So 100 shares can do you pretty well, you know. And you can apply that to any stock. I don't know, let's see what was liquid here. See, I was messing around with them. I'm always practicing looking at charts, you know. So like, look, here's another example, right? Market opens, stock gaps up. Right, so let's say you see you missed the open, so you're like, all right, I want to see what this is gonna do, right? So, you know, you see it. Let's say you catch it like right in here. So, you know, you put that trend line and you watch it. So you see it break the trend here, you know. So once it breaks the trend, you know, you can take a look to see what is it gonna do. Is it gonna collapse and come down, or you're not sure. But when you see this consolidation, you see the flag, here's the high, you put, you see right here, you put the from the high going down this way, and then this is the clear support level, right? So you put another trend line here, and what do you notice here? You know, I got good enough where I don't even need them, but you see a flag, and look what happens. Finds its support here, and once it breaks this trend, this downward trend, look at this, spikes up, and then you take the trend long, you know. And what do? You put a trend line at, once you're in, you just put your trend line, so that way you watch, you know, you just ride the trend. Once it breaks the trend, then that's your thing to get out, you know. Or let's say you just happen to catch the stock right here, so you're like, shit, I'm not gonna chase it, but I'm gonna put a trend line, because once it breaks the trend, if there's shares available to short, I'm gonna short it, and, you know, and you see this high here, and you can short it down, you know. And then if you're in short, you can also again put your trend line going the opposite way, you know. Once it breaks the trend, then it's up to you. You could cover some here. You could say, hey, I got in here, so I'm gonna risk a higher day, and be a little greedy. Or you can just cover, you know. I always say take your profit, you know, and then look, you know, kind of find its way. And, you know, you could do this all day, to be quite honest with you. You know, you really can do this all day. Now, what you can do is, let's say you missed this whole beginning. Let me clear this out. Right, so you missed, let's say you missed the opening, and, you know, you missed all this, and, you know, you caught the stock somewhere in here, and you're not sure what to do. So what you do is you take the high here, and you just kind of go in the direction of where the stock is going. So you see, here's the next candle. So you want to kind of follow this trend here, and, you know, oops, let me get rid of that. So, you know, you see that, and once it's in that trend and it breaks that trend, and you see definitely goes above VWAP, you can take this up, you know. And if you see this gap up, you see the pullback, you see the flag forming, you're like, hey, it's a trend, and boom, you can just take it long. You know, and once you're in long, and if it's going straight up like that, you just following the trend. You know, once you see a gap up and it pulls back and you get that little pop, but it's not gapping, you take that short right there, and look at that. Trend goes in the other direction, you know? So you play trend, you can play scalps with trend lines. I mean, they're great, you know, and that's why you want these big percentage gainers to trade these big percentage gainer stocks, because, you know, they're very volatile. And the volatility, you play the volatility based off the trend, you know. And here's another stock. Here's another example. So let's say you see this and you catch it like somewhere here, and you're not sure what to do, right? So you're like, okay, I don't want to chase. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, you know, create my trend line. So, you know, you see it somewhere here, and, you know, you like, you know, so you see it going, and, you know, you're watching it go through its trend, and you see it pulls back, right? And you see it's holding. You could theoretically really quickly take a short right when it breaks the trend here, and it doesn't seem like much, but in these three candles, it goes from, let's say you got in, I don't know, at like $2, all right, close that. Let's say you got in at 197 at the close. You know, it pulls back all the way to the EMA. It got to a low of 185. So let's say you got in at 197 and you took 5,000, you know, 2,000 shares or 1,000 shares at 197, and in that pullback at close, let's say you got 190, you know, $70 you make right away, you know. So, you know, it's this is the way to do it. And then if you see the sideways consolidation like this, you know, you take the top of the day, you go right across, right, and you see that flag forming. Once it breaks the trend, look, every time you see a trend break, it usually get a pop, you know. And let's say you take a chance here right off the 13 EMA. Look at this, it went up to 245 in those 3 minutes. You know, and you always make sure you put your trend line as you see the stock gap up, because once it breaks the trend, you know, you're going to get a little bit of a wash. You never know how bad, but look, this shit freaking collapse. So you can just say, hey, you know, I'm going to put my trend lines until I see a break of the trend so I can short it. And, you know, and that's how you use trend lines. But remember, you know, I'm showing you the gaps ups and gaps downs, but don't ever forget, it's super important to know where the high is, so where, you know, resistance is at the moment. Oops. This is a pain. What I usually like to do is when I'm just doing create straight lines, I just go to my drawings, I go to the price line. It's just so much easier to do it this way. It's just a lot easier. So you got to do the high and then the low, so you know the range that you're in, you know, and then you know what support and resistance are each along the way. See, this is a pullback, is a pullback, so you know where you get those little bounces. And then if you're watching this carefully, once it breaks this key level, which was support, you could take it short. That's why it's important to know. Even if you didn't use the trend lines that I've been showing you, like, you know, even if you're not using these trend lines, you know, if you just basically breaking off support and resistance. But, you know, me personally, if I'm seeing this, I'm watching this go down, and look, it doesn't seem like much, but if you're watching the trend, right, and it's going down, once it breaks that trend, look, you got a little pop here. It doesn't seem like much, but in these candles, it goes from a low of 1763 to a high of 188. Doesn't seem like much, but 1,000 shares, you know, you getting 20 cents. That's over $200 you can make just like that, you know. And the volume is there. You know, this had a lot of volume. Each candle had almost 100,000 shares trading each candle. So the volume's there for you to get executed very, very quickly. So that's what I wanted to talk about, guys. You know, trend lines, support and resistance. You know, the trend is your friend. Remember, if this is, so by default, let me just go to the trend line. By default, oops, sorry, let me edit. It's not gonna have the left and right on. This is not gonna. I'm sorry. The extensions are not. They're gonna be off by default. So if you want the trend line to appear like this, you gotta put them both on at the same time. Pick whatever color you like. Hit save as default. Hit OK. And then, you know, then when you create the trend line, you see you click left click on it, and then you just, you know, drag this down to wherever you want it to go, and then let it go. And you see, you get trend, you get a little pop, and you continue down. All right, so I hope that made sense. You know, I'll create a watch list, post it to Twitter. So please like, subscribe, and share, and, you know, send me some feedback, send me some questions. Let me know what you think. All right, have a great one.